camera here. It is fascinating. We've been having a fascinating conversation with Ioanna. I'll get it right eventually. And me about what she has done in the past, and then taking on a course, becoming to understand how she has such a talent as a medium and how to use it, and uses it beautifully these days. But let's continue that story about you going into that course and that woman coming over and saying you're a psychic, and you went into a group which she suggested, and you were in your corporate gear and everybody else was in their flowery gear and, you know, hippie, let's say hippie stuff. And it was like, oh, am I supposed to be here? Yes, of course. So tell us that experience about that meeting.
It was so funny, Faye, and obviously to the listeners. So I've rocked up, as I said, in this suit. I love to study, so I was quite diligent about how I rocked up. And they were sitting in what's called a circle, and we sat around, and the idea was that everyone was able to step up and do a reading and to practice amongst the group members. And the very first lady to stand up to give a reading was a lady next to me, and the rest of the group had been together for over 10 years, so they all knew each other really well. I obviously was a complete newbie, and they all started giggling when she stood up, and they went, oh, she's going to go, watch her go. And I thought, what's she going to do? Goodness, I was really fascinated. And of course she stands up and she starts rubbing her hands together, and next thing you know, this masculine voice has boomed out of her vocal cords, which just astounded me, because I now know it's what's called a trance reading. So spirit had overshadowed her to the point where she's taken on the voice and the persona and the characteristics of that spirit person. But of course I had no idea at that point what that was, and I remember looking, thinking, what on earth have I put myself into here? I was just absolutely gobsmacked. And then, but obviously the curiosity took over for me, because I do like to learn, I do like to investigate, and I do feel that's my engineering side. And so I continued, and I ended up sitting with that group for about 1.5 years, learning all the different skills of being a medium. And of course, to be a medium, you need to be a really good psychic as well. So you had to learn the psychic skills equally. It was invaluable, and often in that group, sometimes we learn what not to do as well. And so it was good from a teaching perspective for me to also see how that circle was run and what worked and what didn't work.
Okay, now I'm going to ask, how do you learn to be a psychic? You're there, what do they teach you? Is it just is it enhancing the skills that you already have and creating that awareness around the skills that you have, so that you then can go and use them in the right way?
Yes, that you've pretty much nailed it, Faye. A really good mentor should be able to look at the auric field of their student and be able to see what is already developed and present, so what you have naturally developed, and all mediums do, plus what is your potential, what is still sitting there that you haven't been able to develop yet. And then there'll be a series of exercises that a good teacher will set to give you the opportunity to identify that skill set, raise awareness around it, and then to practice it, build up confidence and trust, not only in yourself but also in your spirit team, which we all have. It doesn't matter if you're a medium or a psychic or not.
What's a spirit team?
Yeah, great question, right? So a spirit team is, other names for it are guides, guardians, angels, helpers. I think of them as the spiritual board of directors. That you're part of that team, they are part of your team, and they will gently nudge you to the right, to get to the right course, or to meet the right person, or to make that choice. And interestingly, a lot of businessmen do actually work quite psychically, or through the instincts. It's really quite interesting to see.
Really?
Yeah.
Okay.
So
Without even knowing that they're doing it, they
Yeah.
actually do this.
they do. They use words like, I'm not, my feeling is that the problem is in this area, or my gut says we're missing something. And they dress that up in that type of language, which is a little safer than saying, I'm clairsentiently perceiving that, something's not quite right here.
They'd think that they were loopy if they started saying that sort of thing anyway, wouldn't they?
100%, 100%. So it's really quite interesting. For me, I'm deeply passionate about teaching all those skill sets. So I've developed my own exercises, I've experienced exercises as well. Being able to see people grow that and trust it and use it in their day-to-day work, whether they choose to be a medium or not, is extraordinary, because I believe it becomes a much more fulfilling life, a richer life. It's a life where you know that you're not alone. So just to know that you've got these guardian angels, these spirit team people.
Your board of directors.
Your board of directors.
Yes.
They're always there. And they will send us signs, and they will do things that they'll try and get your attention. So one of the things that I said to my team, being so logic driven, I said, I need to get it in threes. If you send me a sign, give it to me in threes, and then it brings my attention to it. And that's how they've worked with me ever since. So if it's something important, I will always get a sign in threes.
So it depends on what it is, but there'll be always three things that come to you to get your attention to work with it or deal with it or move through it.
Correct. 100%.
Right.
And sometimes they can, if you're in flow with it, you can get a lot of signs. I have a beautiful friend who literally gets her answers through the signs on trams. When she was in the city.
Signs on trams?
Yeah, literally billboards that are on trams. She would ask a question to her team and be driving around, or riding around on a tram in the city, and if her focus went to a word or a phrase off that tram, often that would be exactly what she needed to hear. And that's how our spirit team influences us. They will make us look.
Can I have one?
Oh, 100%. You just
I
have
want
to ask.
I want a board of directors.
You just have to ask. Ask and you shall receive.
I want a board of directors. Absolutely. Board of directors, please. I did ask nicely. I find it fascinating that men can do this without actually realising what they're doing. They just use the normal words instead of being technical.
Yeah.
But they are in that space.
They are.
Wow, that's they don't know it themselves though, do they?
They don't know it. And when I teach mediumship, I usually ask the students to look at their language. What language are they using? So if you're the person that says, can you show me how I get to a particular street? Or I'm not seeing the big picture, or I need to see it, I need to walk around in it. You're visual, and that means your clairvoyance, your clear seeing is quite open and naturally developed in you. So a lot of artists are quite inspired. Feelers, there's a lot of people that might not even be aware. They might walk into a room and say, oh, something feels off here, or oh wow, how amazing does this room feel? And they get really excited and their energy lifts, and that is their feelers, and that is clairsentience. So you'll be able to look at your knowledge. The other thing that men do really well is the claircognizance, the I knows. I don't know how I know, I just know this. And that comes in really, really clearly as well. And if you're open to it, your guides are there to guide you. So they're not there to give you the answers. They're not there to live your life for you. That's why we're here, right? We have to live our life. But if you allow them to be part of your family, your existence, it can be incredibly beneficial. I get a lot of I'm not a marketer, but if I want to write some copy for something that I'm advertising and I get stuck, I take a moment and I ask, and I just say, I need a marketing person on my team now just to work with me and give me the right inspiration.
I want one of those too. I would like one of those as well, please, in my directorship.
And that's all you have to do.
I'm putting in my order.
And I love that. I love that you've embraced it, because it truly is as simple as that. It really is.
I need it. That is so good. I love it. It intrigues me that men have no idea that they're doing these things. It's usually the women that are the ones that embrace it and take it on. Are there many men that come to you and want to actually embrace their gift?
There are, and I'm one of the, I know that I'm quite unique in that a lot of men do come to see me. When I say a lot, they're probably 15 to 20% of my client base, which isn't still a huge number, but you're quite right. Typically it's women. We're far more able to, as women, tune in, particularly when we become mothers, right? We tune into our babies when they don't speak to us, and it's a lot more natural and indicative. And I'm not taking away from the fathers. Obviously, there's fathers that are very in tune as well, but we are biologically geared up that way. So men will often come in and be able to just seek some guidance around their own business, what they're wanting to do. I actually find males tend to make really good mediums because their information is quite to the point. So they do get quite a lot of factual information. The more creative we are, sometimes the information that comes through can be
so broad.
And then we have to really learn to narrow that down as well, and get really clear with our language. So so it's quite interesting. It's fascinating. I believe there's far more intuition in men than they give themselves credit for as well, and they don't really get spaces or the opportunity to embrace that or even to experience it and try it out, and that's a shame.
Yes, because if they're in the corporate sector and they're high up in the executive roles, they have a job to do and they concentrate on it, but they are actually using that gift without even really knowing it, and that's why they're there.
That's exactly right. If you watch them very carefully, that's what you'll actually see. In more recent times, they're calling it EQ, emotional intelligence.
Yes.
So they're bringing in the emotional intelligence with the IQ, the intellectual intelligence. And they're proving now that well-rounded business people and managers, if they're whole brain integrated, if they bring both sides of that in, and I call that those two halves together spiritual intelligence, because that's what spiritual intelligence is for me. And I feel it's really interesting if people can embrace both sides of that, the amount of leverage and creative potential that comes through and solutions that unfold is incredible.
Yeah, it's interesting, isn't it, that it's not equal, but there's a high level for men, and there is a lot of women. How do they know if they have that gift within them? What is the feeling that they have before they come to you to find out whether it is real or not real? And if they do find out that it's not real, what is it that they want to do with their life? They're a little confused, so you clear up that and give them some clarity.
Sometimes it's just reassuring the person that they're not going crazy, and that this is definitely an ability and a gift that they've got. Or they're coming usually when there's been a major crisis of some description. It could be a divorce, it could be a loss of someone close to them, that a loved one of theirs. It could be a near-death experience, and it can be any number of those things, but usually sometimes the crisis point will trigger an awakening or a seeking. I've woken up and I'm not happy. Why am I not happy? What is missing? And they go looking for that. That's how it typically happens. Or, it's usually some major life event, and that's when they get fully on path. That happened to me as well. I actually had a near-death experience myself, which also, so two things brought me fully on path. One was the birth of my daughter, where that just opened it up to a certain degree. And the second thing is I had a near-death experience where I had a heart attack, basically.
How old were you when you had that?
I would have been, let me just think for a minute, 41.
Wow.
41. And it was interesting because the heart attack was emotionally driven. And a year to the day that I had my event, they had just proven research that you can have emotional heart attacks. without, because my heart muscle wasn't damaged, and it still registers on all the pain receptors on your brain, and everything else is
As a heart attack.
as a heart attack. They called it a heart incident for me, and then it resulted in pericarditis for the next 6 weeks, which was excruciating. If anyone's had that,
Don't want it.
don't want it, I wouldn't recommend it. For me, it was a moment, I had a moment, an out-of-body experience where I was given an option to continue moving up or to come back. For me, my daughter was only 3 when that happened, and I thought, oh, who's going to pick this? Who's going to pick my child up from kinder? And I thought, oh, I will definitely be there for that. So I moved back down into my body rather than keep going the other way. But that's when my whole life changed, where I walked into this as a profession full-time, and I've done it ever since full-time. I've never looked back, and as much as I loved my corporate life, I don't miss it. I would never go back to it. I'm fully on path.
Yeah, but you actually get to see what you've done anyway.
Yeah.
So, you know, all the modern technology and everything like that very quickly.
Wow.
And Ioanna and I have been having a fabulous conversation, haven't we?
We have. It's been such a joy and such a buzz to discuss so many topics today.
Yes. Now, with the last 20 minutes that we have, and we're on Facebook Live. Hi!
Hi!
We want to talk about, let's see, with the mediumship and with what you do and the healing that you help people with, when they come to you, this might be a weird question, but when they come to you and they're not sure about where they are in life, the space that they should be in, and there was something that you mentioned before the break was people do things because their parents did it. You know, they're engineers, they're doctors, they're lawyers, they're accountants and those sorts of things. And then they discover that they don't like it. Is it because they're pressured into that, they feel obligated to do what their parents have done? Or is it that they just conform to please other people?
I feel it's probably they're conforming to please other people, so they're actually losing sight of what gives them joy.
Yes.
And I think joy is such an important part. The soul thrives on the joy energy. We get excited about joy, and if we're doing things we don't like, you know, we're hitting that snooze button 50 times before we roll out of bed. We're very heavy in our energy. We're very unmotivated. One of the abilities that I have, which I'm quite blessed to have, is I do see colour in the aura. So when I'm looking at people, I can see colours that are present. Yes.
Have I got lots of colour?
Do you know what you've got active? You do. What you've got active right now, as I read yours, Faye, is you've actually got turquoise blue in there, which is really beautiful. And that turquoise blue, you're a communicator, and guess what? Here you are. So that's why conversations fascinate you. You're definitely a communicator, but you're also, the turquoise also takes you up to the higher, to the spiritual communication as well. So a lot of you might not be aware, but a lot of what you actually bring in is often guided by spirit. So even if you're not consciously aware of it, you're guided by it. So that's your guides, your board of directors upstairs.
I've got to collect them.
You've got to collect it, put your order in, and they're very much there. You've got a lot of yellow, which is the sign of an intellectual. So it doesn't always mean that you have to have 50 degrees to your name. Often people have degrees and they're not very intellectual at all, but you definitely have that. And you have that lovely silver in there as well, which means you've transcended, let's put it, how can I put this? You've transcended life's difficulties that you might have had earlier on in life, and you're now in a very comfortable place. So you've learnt, your soul's learnt, it's integrated, it's understood all the experiences that you've had, and you're able to just integrate it perfectly. Your crown chakra, which is the top of your head, is very, very open at the moment, as we would expect it to be, because every time you're thinking of these inspired questions, they're coming in, and I know you're not going off the script, so you really are connecting in, and spirit is giving you these wonderful questions to ask. So that's how it is, and a lot of different colors will tell an experienced medium what we call them the soul's colors. So it's a fingerprint, if you like, it's a signature.
Okay.
what have you come in to do? And often when people first come to have a reading with me or a sitting, I will have a bit of a look to see. And there's various reasons people come, but the ones that I like to do, of course, mediumship comes in. The way it works for me is I will link to your guides first. So if the guides have something to say, they take precedence.
I want to ask what a guide is and how do we know who our guides are and if we have any at all.
Yeah, that's really good. So a guide is very much part of what we talked earlier, the spirit team, and the guides, every single one of us, whether we are a believer or not, will have at least one guide, which is a main guide, that will stay with us from the time we pretty much have decided we're going to be birthed into this world until the time we get back and do life review in the other world. And they will stay with you, whether you are consciously aware of them or not. And their job is to get you to live your purpose, to nudge you at the right times. So some of us, like myself, we're very aware of them. I have daily conversations with my guides. I'm not a passive meditator, and that's one way that you can access them. I'm an active meditator. And I always say to people, just start talking to them and then ask them to show you signs that they're around. And usually when guides come in, you might get a little prickly feeling up the back of your neck, or your head might be a little bit prickly, or you might get like a breeze on your arms. And with time, you'll be able to know what they feel like. You'll get a sense of a feeling in your body. You'll think, oh yeah, that's my guide, that's speaking to me. As you develop your abilities further, and I teach a very simple technique on how to draw your guides, and it doesn't matter if you can't draw. I have a lecture series there that I teach people how to actually just draw their guides. But I'll tell you a funny story about my guide. So when I was developing back, in my early 30s, I was sitting in that circle and we were doing a meditation to see who our guides are. And all I could see was just this chocolate eye. I didn't know if it was a male eye or a female eye, what kind of body this person. I just had no idea. And this went on and on and on and on for years. I could say almost 10 years. And I was absolutely frustrated and disgusted in the end. I just thought, this is ridiculous. I knew they were there, I just couldn't see them. And everyone's hung up about seeing the guides, right? We all get hung up.
Do you actually see them or you don't see them?
We see them as like an image in our mind's eye,
right.
If you do. But sometimes we don't. We just feel them, or we might hear them, and we might just know that they're there.
Right.
But one day I set the intention before I went to sleep. I said, I really, really would love to know who you are and what you look like.
Whether you're male or female.
Male or female, who are you, what are you? And then I let go. So I was trying so hard and I just let go. I got over it, I was frustrated, I thought, that's it, I'm just giving up on it. And the next day I'd gone to, I think it was to have a facial, something like that. All of a sudden I saw this beautiful Indian guru, like not American Indian, but actual Indian, just in white, with beautiful long grey hair. Looked a bit like Confucius with a what do they call it, a bindi or Hindi or whatever
something
it is,
like that,
the thing that's on the eye, the third eye. And he was just gorgeous. But because I'd given up, I thought this man's got to be connected to my therapist, the lady that was doing my facial. So I said to her, I can see your guy. I could see him standing there, which was amazing. And he just sort of giggled at me, didn't say anything. And I thought, oh, he's connected to her. And then I went to something else later that day. It might have been a healing or whatever I had. Suddenly he was there again. And
so he wasn't connected to her.
He wasn't connected. He was actually connected to me. I
Yeah.
laughed. So I saw him as the older, wizened guru. Then later on in that week, I had a dream of him. It was one of those very real altered dreams. The way I saw myself was and this is what I learned, so there's a purpose to the story. I was walking through some dusty streets in India, and I could see this whole line of people in my dream that were waiting. And I asked them, oh, what are you lining up for? What are you doing? And they said, oh, we're here to see the guru. And I went, oh, great. Oh, I'm going to go and see the guru as well. So I joined the line. And this line kept moving. And then we walked into what would be an outside room, I suppose. And there was this long wooden bench there and beautiful trees. And then there was a residence further back. And it was my turn. I'm sitting on this long bench moving up, and all these people moving up. And this beautiful young man came to see me, all in white with dark hair. So no grey hair, no nothing. He's just come in, very handsome. And he leans forward and he looks in my eyes and he said, who are you here to see in my dream? And I said, I'm here to see the guru. And he just watched me for a few minutes. I didn't say anything. So he said, keep waiting. I said, okay. So I'm waiting, and this happened 3 or 4 times. He kept coming. Who are you here to see? I said, I'm here. By this stage, I was getting frustrated because everyone was moving forward except for me. I'm here to see the guru. And he kept looking at me, and he said, keep waiting. And then finally, it dawned on me because he kept trying to look at me in my eyes, and I finally thought, I said, oh my gosh, it's you. It was the young man, not the old man that I'd seen in my, objectively. And as soon as I recognized him, he held my hands and we flew up into the air and the bench flew away. And there was this elation. And then he sat with me in my dream and said, you were a student of mine, and we lived 300 years ago in India. And that's when I learnt about guides. I learnt that A, we all have them. B, the best way to recognize them is through the eyes. So I always teach my students to draw them through the eyes, to start with the eyes first. And C, we've always had a lifetime with them somewhere. So our soul has a recognition. It's extraordinary.
And the soul is really interesting, isn't it? Because when we pass, our soul's still here.
Yes.
So our physical being has gone, but our soul is still here
Our
and
soul
present.
remains, absolutely.
And I would never have believed that once upon a time, you know.
100% it does, and I share a story if I can. I hope we've got time.
Yes, we have.
So a few years ago, I knew I had to go and visit Ireland. I'd never been to Ireland before. I have a Greek heritage, etc. And I knew that I had to be in a particular part of Ireland in particular. So it was in County Clare, which I now know is County Clare. And as soon as I arrived there, I ended up staying in this little town where no tourists go there at all. And of course, as you do when you're in Ireland, you go to the pub. So I've gone to the first pub that I've been to. The pub just stopped talking. They've all looked at me and they're like, oh, and who might you be? And I said, oh, hello, I'm from Australia, and, started chatting to these people. And I got to know a few of them, and they turned around and said to me, why are you here? Like, no tourist comes here. And I just started to tell them, oh, yes, no, I just drove past. I thought I'd stay here. And halfway through my sentence, I looked at one of them and I said, I've come home. And that's what I said. That's what came out of my mouth. I've come home. And she just looked at me and she nodded. And that's all she said. And I said to her, okay, I'm here. What should I see then? I know tourists don't come here, but what would I see here? And she talked to me about going to see a castle, Bunratty Castle, and she talked about the Burren, which is, this place. So off I went on this, she drew this little map. And as I was coming over the hill, I looked across and there was another hill in front of me. And I started to shake. I started to cry. I was driving and I knew that hill. And I was with a friend and I said to her, there's a church on that hill. There was nothing on the hill except for sheep. But I said to her, there's a church on that hill. Anyway, as we did, we ended up getting out. We're trying to feel our way around, see if we could see anything. We couldn't. This man starts walking past us out of the blue. He's come out of the blue. And I said to him, excuse me, what's this hill called? And he said, it's called Abbey Hill. And so we said, oh, is there a church on this hill? And he said, I'm not sure. I've just moved to the area, but it's Abbey Hill. I said, all right. So we're on the back part of this hill. We thought, right, we're not going to go over it. It's 3 p.m. and now it'd be pitch black. We'll just, we'll come back another day. So we drove around the other side of the hill and then we saw an old historic sign that said Corcoran Abbey. And we drove right up to it. And there it was from 1157. And I heard Spirit say to me, you're buried here. And I said, okay, where am I buried? And I found a grave. And then when I researched it, so I asked him what was my name, and my name was, I was an O'Brien. Now, it's really funny. The place that I knew I had to be in where no tourists went, County Clare, was the city of Munster, which was Clan O'Brien land. It was a country. Where I went, which was the Cliffs of Moher, which I needed to see, was the O'Brien land. There was O'Brien Tower there. My hotel was built on the home castle's foundations of O'Brien. And Bunratty Castle was actually the outer castle of Clan O'Brien. It was extraordinary, and I knew exactly where I was. And while I was sitting in that church, when I was told where I was buried, I suddenly had a vision, and I could taste, I could have all the smells were coming at me. I could see all the wooden buildings that weren't present anymore, only the stone had remained. I could have drawn it all. it was amazing. So your
Wow.
soul has memory and
Yeah.
it knows.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's interesting, isn't it, when you actually experience that sort of thing, and I wonder how many other people have experienced such things as that
Yeah.
and not really realized what the true meaning of it is. But our
So true.
soul, I mean, you look into your eyes, or people can look into your eyes and dig down into your soul, and it's kind of spooky, really, when you think about it. But it's also, you know, you can do this practice of looking in the mirror and looking into your eyes, and, you know, going into your soul and really seeing who you are. And that is a really tough thing to do.
It truly is. And of course, as the soul, we've had so many lifetimes and so many experiences, and the clues are always in, you know, if you've always loved a particular era or a particular country. So for me, I always had that fascination with Ireland. You know, the deco style or era was very much my thing. So that whole Downton Abbey thing is I just get so excited. I'm sure I've lived upstairs and downstairs in those types of places, and, you know, just fascinated from a child. Egypt is another one of mine,
yes.
you know, and there's got to be truth in this. There's lots of documented evidence with this, and a lot of children are great at saying, you know, I was this before I came to you, Mum, or, you know, they know things that come out that are amazing facts about that they wouldn't necessarily have had knowledge before. And that's how we can see it. And there's many documented stories and deja vu, you know, where you have that out-of-body
yes.
experience and think, gosh, you know,
What was that?
Sure, I've lived here before, I've done this before, I've said that before, and that is the soul. It's quite amazing.
It can be quite scary too.
And scary.
If you don't understand what is actually happening, it can be quite scary, and that can create emotions and illness for some people if they don't understand what's going on. And I suppose with what's been going on, there's a lot of emotions and a lot of things happening with people who need to be healed right now.
Yes.
But we're coming toward the end of the show. If you were to say something about mediumship and someone had that feeling but they weren't really sure of what it was or how to use it, what would you say to them?
I would say follow your guidance, and if they lead you to the right mentor or teacher, then a good trusted mentor or spiritual teacher will be able to assist you to remove the fear and the doubt and to confirm it one way or the other, so that you at least get peace of mind with it. And then the other thing I would say is it's entirely a choice. Even if you've got it present, it doesn't mean that you have to do anything about it.
Yeah.
You can actually acknowledge it and say to your team, thank you so much, but I'm really not ready, or I don't want to do it at the moment, and away it goes. But often, if it's validated, you can work together with a mentor and allow yourself to reach the place that you need to be in, whatever that looks like for you, whether it's working full-time as a medium or as a healer or a combination or part-time, in your own timing, so that you are supported rather than fast-tracked or, you know, or held back even.
Beautiful.
Yeah.
Thank you so much for coming on the show, and thank you for coming into the studio. It's been fun. I'm Faye Waterman. This has been A Conversation with Faye. I'll be back next week at the same time, same place.